Hello there, and welcome everyone to this food storage class. I am excited to have you here. I am grateful for the time that you are taking to be here with me and to learn about this topic. I hope that you're excited and that you find a lot of value here and are motivated to move forward with food storage for your family. I'm going to get started by telling you a little bit about myself. I know that some of you on the call maybe follow me on Facebook or get my emails, but I know that there's some of you on the call who've never met me before. And even those who might follow me may not have heard my story, where I've come from as far as emergency preparedness is concerned, and why I might be qualified to speak about this topic or to teach about it. So I'm going to switch over to some slides, and we'll get started with the class. All right, so I grew up being taught about food storage. We drank powdered milk. We had buckets of wheat down in the basement. My mom even gave me a basic 3 months food storage supply as a wedding gift. But to be honest, I didn't really believe much in food storage as a young adult. I felt no real urgency to have a solid food storage or to learn what little food storage I did have. And even when I initially got pregnant with twin boys in 2007, I just didn't think much about it. I was far more concerned about things like diapers and car seats and boppy pillows. Then just a few weeks before the twins were born, my husband and I moved from Utah to California so that he could attend law school. And we left behind friends and family and good paying jobs to make this move. We found a little apartment and we settled in, but I was feeling pretty unsettled myself. I wasn't sure we'd be able to care for ourselves and this growing family if life threw us a curveball. So every day I sat in this small apartment in this huge city with two gorgeous babies and no local support system, plus no income. My husband was gone 16 or more hours a day at school, and I realized that we needed to be better prepared. I started Googling emergency preparedness, and I found a lot of information. Some of it was helpful, but honestly, much of it was really fear-filled, and all of it was somewhat of a hodgepodge of disconnected and sometimes conflicting advice. There was no step-by-step system telling me what I should do first, next, and last. Plus, a lot of the information was over my head or it didn't apply specifically to my family and our individual needs. I was afraid of all those different scenarios I was reading about online, but I felt helpless because I couldn't really figure out how to get prepared for those things. And studying up on emergency preparedness in this way was kind of squashing, well, not even kind of, it was really taking away my optimism and making it difficult for me to enjoy my everyday life. I wanted simple, down-to-earth information that fit me, a normal mom wanting to do her best to be ready to care for her kids. But not being able to find that type of information made me feel really panicky and vulnerable. So eventually I did what I often do when I feel helpless, and I turned to God in prayer. He helped me to realize two things. First, He wants me to enjoy my life, my kids, my husband, the beach, the mountains, the rain. Life is to be enjoyed. And second, He loves me similarly, although more perfectly, to how I love my own children. He expects my best, and He will not save me from every single tough situation, but He will help me learn from those situations and develop character in difficult times. Suddenly, after realizing these two things, I was able to let go of my fear and obsession. All I needed to do was my best, and honestly, my best was not that much with no income. Even if the bad things that I was afraid of happened, God would make them meaningful in my life in some way. He would use them to school me and my children in some way. But this didn't just get me off the hook when it came to working with emergency preparedness. Like I mentioned earlier, just like I expect my children to work hard and to do their best, because honestly, it's not good for them to always rely on me. God expects the same thing from me. And my best wasn't much at first, but I did what I could. Doing what I could allowed me to let go of my fear and that kind of doomsday type pessimism and start enjoying my life again. I started spending reasonable amounts of time experimenting with different ideas I'd find online. I'd research them, then I'd practice them, experiment with them, and then I'd start all over so I could tweak things and make them really work for our family and our situation. Over time, I was able to decide what worked best for us, and I started sharing what I was learning with others through my website. As that website grew, it also brought the opportunity to test a lot of preparedness products and food storage brands, all for free, which allowed me to fairly compare them without investing in each one individually. And that's a really rare and awesome opportunity that I was given. I also found that there were a lot of others who were looking for the type of simplicity I was creating. There were many others who wanted to get better prepared, but didn't want to be obsessed with it. They didn't want to have it overtake their lives. There were a lot of others who felt panicky and overwhelmed and stuck. And happily, since 2009, I have been blessed to help thousands of these people become better prepared while enjoying their everyday life. Now, I'm not an over-the-top doomsday prepper. That's important for you to know. I don't have a bunker anymore. Food storage and emergency preparedness are important to me, but they're not any more important than dancing with or cuddling with my kids. God and my family are my priorities, and I prepare because I believe God wants me to, and because I love my family and I want to take care of them. So if you feel like I did 9 years ago, then I wrote today's class for you. Or if you want to build a food storage, but your head kind of starts to spin when you try to sit down and plan it out, then the information in today's class should help you. If one of your New Year's resolutions is to work on food storage, but you get on Google or Pinterest and you just leave feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, and confused, then this class is for you. If you want to be able to confidently care for your family when things don't go as planned, but you aren't sure where to start, then this class should help. My goal today is to help you decide which method you'll use to calculate out of food storage for your family, and then to give you the tools to make calculating that food storage simple. So we'll cover 4 different methods for calculating a food storage for your family. The first is the just add water meals method. The second is the basic calorie method. The third is the calorie plus method. And the fourth is the recipe method. Now, there are pros and cons to each of this method, and we'll discuss them so that you can decide which one works best for your family right now. I'll show you how to calculate what your family's needs are based on the method you choose so that you don't have to waste hours of time trying to figure that out on your own. And last, I'll teach you how to make the method you choose work well for you so that you don't waste money on food storage you aren't ever going to use. But make sure you stay till the end, because it's at the end of the class that I'll be giving everyone access to a printable summary sheet from today so you can remember what you've learned, food storage conversion charts, and 3 different food storage calculators. Now, these calculators typically cost $10 each or $30 total, but I'll be giving them away for free at the end of today's presentation. Plus, you'll also have an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about food storage. If you look down below the video, you'll find a chat box. You are more than welcome to type in any answers, any questions that you have there, and I will answer all those at the end of the class. Now, I will cover as much as I can today. I'm trying to pack as much into this hour as I can, but I just can't give you everything that I've learned the last 10 years in just 1 hour. So I will also give you an opportunity to continue to work with me if you're interested and want to move past food storage at the end of today's class, so look for that. All right, let's jump in. Giving thought to the method you will use to calculate your family's food storage is important. Over the last 10 years, I've seen many people that begin stocking food without planning anything out first. I was one of those people. And honestly, it's not the smartest way to do things. Yes, storing any food is better than storing no food, But starting without a plan creates inefficiency, which results in wasted time and wasted money. And I don't want you to waste either one of those things. So as I walk you through your choices today, I'd invite you to give serious thought to what will work best for your family. That might be different from what works best for my family, and that's okay. That's why I'm giving you 4 options so that you can make an informed decision for your family. I don't believe that anything about emergency preparedness is a one-size-fits-all solution. All right, one choice for building your food storage is to use pre-made Just Add Water meals. These are pouches of food that have a number of different ingredients in them to make a meal. So one example would be hot cereal. And in that pouch, you're going to find oats, freeze-dried fruits, freeze-dried fruits, a little bit of a tongue twister there, nuts, and a bit of sugar. Another example, another pouch might have noodles, tomato powder, mushrooms, seasoning, and freeze-dried sausage that you can use to create spaghetti. Now, in order to eat them, you simply add water, often to the pouch directly, heat them up, and you're good to go. At first glance, Just Add Water meals are very appealing to many people, and there are 2 main reasons for that. First, they make planning what you need to store extremely easy. You simply buy a bucket full of the number of meals you want, and you're done. There's no fancy calculators involved at all. Second, they're really easy to use. There's no need to learn to cook your food when all you have to do is boil and add water. That's pretty simple. In addition, there's one other reason that I personally store Just Add Water meals. In a disaster situation, I might not be able to find 8 different ingredients, pots and pans and dishes all right away. For this reason, I keep a few Just Add Water meals upstairs in my regular pantry as well as in my car. The convenience of them would be very valuable for the first few days following a disaster. However, I have found that many people don't know about some of the downsides to Just Add Water meals. Here are 5 that you should consider. First, they honestly just don't taste great. I've tasted almost every brand out there, and I have not found one that I'm just blown away by, and they're amazing and delicious. The truth is, all the ingredients are in one bag, no matter what brand you go with, so everything has to be cooked for the same amount of time, meaning all the flavors kind of mush together, and you're usually going to have to choose between soggy noodles or crunchy beans and meat. Second, they're difficult to rotate. Some of this is because of that not so great taste. It's likely that your family's not going to want to eat a Just Add Water meal instead of your regular dinner that you make with fresh ingredients. So they will likely just sit on the shelf and not be used unless you're forced to use them. And if that never happens, you'll end up tossing out thousands of dollars of food, which to me is really sad. Third, they don't offer a lot of nutrition. There's a few different reasons for this. First, in order to maintain a 20+ year shelf life, when you combine ingredients like that, you have to include various additives and preservatives. So typically, most of these are going to contain large amounts of salt, MSG, sugar, or other damaging additives. And if they don't have those things, then they're going to have a shorter shelf life. Now, eating those additives for a few days isn't going to permanently damage anyone's health. I store some of these for the first day or 2 after an emergency, but eating them for months could damage your health. In addition to the additives and preservatives, most Just Add Water meals are very heavy on white grains like white rice or pasta. They include very little veggies and protein. So those refined grains are full of calories, but not much else. They're not going to sustain energy long term. Fourth, they're not going to help your mood in an emergency situation. What you eat does affect your mood. One of my favorite quotes about food in general is from Virginia Woolf, who said, "One cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well." And I can't think of a time when it will be more important to think, love, and sleep well than following a natural disaster or during a period of financial insecurity. So both the inferior taste and the inferior nutrition are going to contribute to your mood. Last, they cost a lot. Now, at first glance, these meals seem to be an inexpensive option often, but unfortunately, this is deceiving. A bucket may claim to have, say, 30 meals in it for a family of 5, but when you actually look at the calories, each person is getting less and sometimes far less than 1,000 calories per day. I've seen some of these meals as low as 400 calories per day per person. And since you can't reasonably survive, at least not well, on so few calories for weeks or months, you're going to need to buy 2 or maybe 3 buckets to have a sufficient supply for your family, and that's going to double your cost. In addition, some companies will claim 2,000 calories per day or something similar, but when you look at the details, a large portion of those calories is coming from sugar-filled drinks, not from food. So you might get, say, 1,200 calories from food, and the rest are coming from these sugary drinks. In addition, if you choose to supplement all those highly refined grains I mentioned earlier with additional fruit, veggies, or proteins that you buy on the side separately, that is going to increase your cost as well. So I've found that when I calculate out cost per calorie for actual food, Just Add Water meals are almost always the most expensive option. So in summary, Just Add Water meals are a good option if you are overwhelmed or paralyzed by the effort and time that's required by the other 3 options we'll talk about today. So if you do choose to store a long-term supply of Just Add Water meals, here's some things that will make this method work well for you. Taste many options before you fully invest in any, so you find the ones that your family enjoys the most. Set a schedule to eat one of your Just Add Water meals every month or so. Try to find options with less additives and preservatives in it. Know that when you do that, you will sacrifice shelf life, so you got to make sure you're rotating through them. Look for options that include a good balance of grains, fruits, veggies, and protein, or purchase those things on the side. And then be careful of the cost. Make sure that you're looking at that cost per calorie for food, not just overall meals or overall calories. All right, the second method for building a food storage is what I like to call the basic calorie method. And this is what most people think of when they think of food storage. Excuse me for a minute, I'm just going to get a quick drink. Now, the basic calorie method includes life-sustaining foods such as whole grains, beans, oils, sugar, baking supplies, and powdered milk. When you use this method to plan your food storage, you calculate what you need based on the number of calories you want to eat each day. There are some calculators out there that use pounds, but I don't personally suggest or like that because it's not as accurate as counting calories, as calculating calories. Now, many people ask, well, how many calories a day should I store? In fact, this is one of 2 really popular questions that people gave me before the class today. And it's a great question, but honestly, it's not one I can answer directly because I'm not in your shoes. I don't know what your family's needs are. I can, however, guide you in making a decision. So I want you to consider these 3 questions. First, how many calories a day do you eat right now? Second, how much exercise or other physically exerting tasks do you do every day or every week? And third, as you think about the disasters that you're most likely to happen, how much energy are you going to need then? How many physically exerting tasks are going to be required of you then? Many people choose to store a very minimal amount of calories per day. Oh, it's just for an emergency. I don't really care. I want to put something aside and there's something there. But in my opinion, this just isn't wise because it's very likely you're going to need more, not less energy in a disaster situation. Even if you're talking about financial insecurity, your stress levels are going to be higher. So I suggest you store at least the number of calories you currently consume, if not more. And you may not know exactly how many you consume, but on average, most men and women are somewhere between 1,800 to 2,500 a day. And that would include teenagers, somewhere in that range. Smaller children are probably between 1,200 and 1,800. So that gives you kind of a general range. You and your family and your own needs will help you kind of fine tune that. All right, there are 3 main benefits to using this method to plan and then build your food storage. First, it's extremely cost effective, and that is a huge benefit. These foods are the least expensive calories you can get. This is how I started back when we had very little money, but I wanted to do something. Second, it's relatively easy to plan. While it's not quite as simple as the Just Add Water meals, it's not going to take days or even hours to plan what you need. The calculator I'll be giving you at the end of the class today is going to do the math for you. And in just a matter of minutes, you can have a shopping list ready with what you need to purchase. Last, this method offers quick peace of mind. And personally, I believe this to be a huge benefit as well. Most families can afford the time and money to get at least a 2 to 4 week supply of basic foods in their home. And that brings valuable peace of mind, which will then motivate you to go on to the next method. Some of those other methods require more time and money. But if you can get this quick peace of mind, you're going to be motivated to take that next step and move forward. But there are some things to consider when you're looking at the basic calorie method. First, there is a learning curve to cooking with these foods. Now, if you already cook with basic foods, you grind your own flour and you use beans and you bake regularly, this won't apply to you. But most people don't regularly use things like wheats and powdered milk in their everyday cooking. And some people don't bake or cook much from scratch at all, so they might not use things like sugar, baking soda, or dry beans. If you fall into that category, there's going to be a learning curve for you as you begin to use these foods. Now you might think, well, I'll get them now and learn to use them later. That's what I thought years ago, but I highly suggest you learn to use them now before you're forced to use them. Because if you store these type of foods but don't learn how to use them, your stress level during an emergency is going to skyrocket. Having to learn how to use wheat when the internet is down and you didn't realize that you needed a wheat grinder to turn it into flour is going to be a problem. Second, basic food can be difficult to rotate. So if you fit into the category of those who don't cook from scratch and don't want to, you're going to find it difficult to rotate through these foods. Even if you're disciplined enough to learn how to use them, if you don't have or make the time to do that regularly, they're just going to sit on your shelf and you may throw away a lot of food. That waste is sad. Third, eating only basic foods can cause food fatigue. So like I mentioned earlier, what you eat affects your mood. And when cooked by someone who knows how to use them, most basic foods can be quite tasty. So that's not the problem. It's the lack of variety that could cause food fatigue. These foods can become boring, and that can affect your mood. And once again, you're going to want to be at the top of your game during an emergency or job loss or other disaster. So that's something to think about when you're considering this method. Fourth, basic foods can cause digestive issues. Now, just like the first two, this can be solved by eating them regularly. But while foods in this basic category are healthy, there is a catch. If you're not used to eating whole grains and beans, but then you start doing so because you're forced to, you're going to get sick with digestive issues. Those are going to sap your energy just when you need it and add a lot of stress to an already difficult time. And in a true emergency situation, if you don't have access to quality medical care, these issues can be especially dangerous, particularly if you care for young children or the elderly. However, like I already mentioned, just want to make sure this is clear. If you already use these foods, or if you learn to and then do it regularly, this won't be a problem for you. Fifth, basic foods are missing certain nutrients. Now, while none of the foods found in a basic food storage plan are unhealthy, in fact, they're all quite healthy, they do lack the nutrients found in fruits and vegetables. You can get some of those nutrients by sprouting your grains and beans, but you're not going to get all of them. And last, it's difficult to create full meals with just basic foods. This method simply calls for storing enough basic calories to sustain life, but that doesn't automatically mean you're going to be able to make a full meal out of the calories you have stored. You can rotate through the ingredients you store by making bread or serving a side of beans for dinner, but it can be very difficult to create full meals from just basic ingredients simply because you don't have all the food groups. In summary, the basic food storage method is a good option for those who are on a tight budget and who like or are willing to learn to cook from scratch. And if you choose to go with this method, learn how to use the food you store if you don't already know how. Make certain that you have a grain mill so you can turn your grains into flour. Cook from scratch at least weekly so you can rotate through your food, not waste it, and make sure your digestive systems are used to those whole grains and beans. Store your family's favorite spices and herbs in addition to what's recommended in the calculator to help avoid food fatigue. Learn to sprout grains and beans, and then consider gardening and canning or storing fruits and vegetables at some point in the future as your finances allow. Okay, method number 3. This is what I call the Calorie Plus method, and it's similar to the basic calorie method, but it is more robust. This method still uses whole grains, beans, and powdered milk, baking supplies as its base, but it also includes fruits, vegetables, condiments, meats, and even cheese if you want it. Now, there are 4 main benefits to this method. Sorry, I hit the next button on the slide and realized that I hadn't said that part. What you need to store is still based on calories, just like with the basic calorie method. All right, so let's move on to the 4 benefits. First, it is relatively easy to plan. With the Calorie Plus method, you're still planning food storage based on calories. So while there are more items to choose from in the calculator than with the basic calorie method, it's still a simple process that doesn't take a huge amount of effort. Second, the food you store is well balanced and nutritious. With the Calorie Plus method, you're storing balanced calories, not just calories. You store foods from all the food groups, which means your food storage is better balanced and more nutritious overall. Third, you're not going to experience food fatigue because you have a wide variety of foods in your food storage, which are going to allow for more exciting meals. And last, creating meals is easier. It's not quite as easy as the recipe method we'll talk about later, but creating meals from food storage built using this method is easier than just the regular calorie method because you have things from all the food groups. However, there are still a few drawbacks to consider. Some of them are similar to the basic calorie method. First is, once again, you're going to have that learning curve. If you don't know how to use things like whole grains, beans, and basic baking supplies. However, the fruits and vegetables and meats that you store will likely have less of a learning curve for you. Second, rotation can still be difficult. Now, even though some of the foods stored with this method are more familiar, oftentimes I've found people will still store things they don't use regularly. For example, I don't like canned green beans or, to be honest, most any canned fruit or vegetable. But when I started adding produce to my food storage, that was the only way I knew how to get shelf-stable produce. So I stored canned green beans. Sadly, we rarely ate it and wasted a lot of it. And you might experience the same problem if you don't know how or where to get quality food. In addition, this method still requires more from scratch cooking. And if you don't have or make the time to create meals with your food storage, it's just going to sit on your shelf and not be used unless you're forced to use it, which once again is going to result in waste. Third, because you're still storing whole grains and beans, you may still experience those digestive issues if you are not using your food regularly. And last, it can still be difficult to create full meals. Now, I know that I've listed this as both a pro and a con. I want to emphasize that if you choose to store food based on calories, that doing so using the Calorie Plus method will make creating meals easier than doing so using the basic calorie method. And that's why I've listed it as a pro. But anytime you store food based on calories, you still might end up with some kind of awkward meals. This is because even if you have a balanced number of total veggies, grains, dairy, and all your food groups, you may still have too much or not enough of one specific ingredient. For example, you may end up with a lot of extra spaghetti noodles and not enough tomato sauce. So in summary, the Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage, don't need the least expensive option, and aren't ready to spend the time required for the last method we'll discuss today. If you choose to go with the Calorie Plus method, be sure that you learn to use the foods that you store if you don't already know how. Make certain you have a grain meal so you can turn your grains into flour, and then cook from scratch at least weekly so that you can make sure your digestive systems are used to the food. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, and you don't waste your food. You're rotating through it. All right, I'm going to take just a 2-minute, well, not 2-minute, maybe 10-second break here and just switch over to the chat and make sure that there aren't any imperative questions. Let's see. Okay, I will get back to most of those afterward. If you can't hear anything, I would check the speakers on your computer. Let me type that in real quick. Check the speakers on your computer. There we go. Okay. All right, let's move on to the last method here. This is what I call the recipe method. And again, all of these names are just my names and they're super fancy, I know, but creative names isn't necessarily my talent. They're clear names, right? All right, the idea behind the recipe method is that the food you store should be based on recipes. In other words, you should store the ingredients you need to make specific recipes instead of just basing your food on calories. So the first step is to gather recipes that your family likes to eat. Then you need to convert those recipes to be made with shelf-stable ingredients. Now, this isn't possible with 100% of recipes. For example, if your family likes steak, there simply isn't a shelf-stable version of an entire steak. You can get beef, you can get chicken, but it's not like a full chicken breast or a full steak. But I would say that with the types of shelf-stable foods that are available today, you can convert most of your recipes. I'd say between 60 to 70%. So once you've converted those recipes to be made with shelf-stable ingredients, then you need to calculate how much of each ingredient you need. Now, I will provide you with an extensive food storage conversion chart at the end of today's class that will help you to make those conversions and change your family's favorite recipes into shelf-stable ingredients. There are 5 main benefits to using this method. First, when and if you have to use your food storage, this method is going to be the easiest to switch to. There's not going to be a lot of learning curve to making your family recipes your family already enjoys. Plus, your family already enjoys them, so they're not going to put up a fit and say, I don't want to eat this. Second, your food storage will be well-balanced and nutritious. Now, obviously, some of this is going to depend on how well-balanced and nutritious your meals already are, but at the very least, basing your food storage on recipes you're already eating means that your food storage will have the same level of nutrition that your current diet does. This is also helpful for those with food allergies. Oftentimes people will ask me, I can't store wheat, I'm gluten-free, or I can't store powdered milk, I can't have dairy, what do I do? Well, just store shelf-stable versions of the food that you're eating right now. And that way, your food storage will fit in to your allergy needs. All right, you're not going to experience food fatigue with this method because you get to decide how much variety to include, and no matter what you choose, the recipes that your family already likes. Next, rotation is easier, which means you'll waste less. By storing ingredients for recipes your family already uses, you make rotation far easier. You decide to make chicken noodle soup one night, and instead of getting a fresh chicken breast, you pull the freeze-dried chicken off your shelf and throw that in, and you use everything else fresh, but it's easy to just rotate through that. Plus, you're feeding your family things that they already enjoy. All right, there are also some extra benefits that come in to storing food that you're already using. Now, this applies to basic foods as well if you already use those. If you already cook with whole wheat and powdered milk and beans, then these benefits apply to you. But if you don't, then choosing to store foods, shelf-stable versions of the foods you do eat, brings some extra everyday benefits that go beyond just helping your family in an emergency. It's going to decrease the time that you spend planning meals, making grocery lists, and shopping at the store. Or what about a week where you're sick or overly busy and you just can't find the time to get to the grocery store? Well, you can pull out your food storage and avoid the cost and the poor nutrition of fast food. Or what about a week with a really bad snowstorm? The power might still be on and you could drive to the grocery store, but you really would rather stay home. Well, pull out your food storage and keep yourself warm and safe while eating food that your family already enjoys. Or what about a night when you find out a friend or a neighbor just experienced a loss or personal tragedy, but it's just hours before dinner? Well, pull out your food storage and whip up a quick meal that you know they'll enjoy because you've made it before. So while having any food storage, again, can help with these things, having food storage that you regularly use anyway makes these things even more beneficial and easier. There are only 2 real downsides to the recipe method, but they can both be extremely hard to overcome. First, it is very time-consuming to plan. You have to gather recipes, convert them to shelf-stable format, and that can be overwhelming. And honestly, it can be just plain hard. I've done it. Now, the calculator that I'll give you today will make the calculating part far easier and quicker, but you're still going to have to gather those recipes and convert them. Second, the cost tends to be higher. It's likely a more expensive option for most family. The reason for that is that unless you're already using grains and beans, this method isn't going to be extremely grain and bean heavy, which are the inexpensive calories. Quality shelf-stable fruits, vegetables, meats, and cheeses are far more expensive per calorie than the basics. But I will say this, we use a lot of freeze-dried foods, and people will look at those, myself years ago, looked at those and had a little bit of sticker shock and said, whoa, these look really expensive. But I have found that because we waste less, our grocery bill hasn't actually gone up. So instead of buying a stalk of celery and using a third of it and throwing the rest of it away, I just scoop out a third cup of celery out of my can, use that, and guess what? The rest of it in the can is still good for a year. So I'm wasting less food, which helps bring that cost down to an acceptable amount of what you'd pay for, fresh food. All right, I need another drink. Sorry. So in summary, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a highly customized, easy to use food storage that they know their family is going to enjoy eating. They also need to be willing to invest time in planning that food storage and the money into building it. If you choose to go with this method, commit to investing a significant amount of time. Pick 3 to 5 breakfast, lunch, and maybe 7 to 14 dinner recipes. Convert those recipes to shelf-stable ingredients using the conversion charts I'll give you, and then try making them at least once so that you know that they turn out well with those shelf-stable ingredients. Use the calculator I'll provide you with to calculate out how much you need of each ingredient. Now remember, you don't have to go all out and plan a full year's supply of food on the recipe method. You could do it just 1 month at a time or so, and that will help ease the financial cost there. And I guess that's true of any method, but just remember that. Now, I'd like to share with you what I've done as I've built a food storage for a family. However, I don't want you to just do what I did. What we've done may not be right for your family. The reason I'm sharing this is that I get that seeing how someone else has put this into action can be a helpful starting point, even if you don't do things the exact same way I did. So when I first started with food storage, we were very poor law school students, and we didn't have any extra money. So for this reason, and the fact that I didn't know much about all the options out there, I started with the basic calorie plan. I purchased enough calories of wheat, rice, beans, powdered milk, macaroni, dehydrated apples, carrots, onions, oats, sugar, those to last my husband and I for 1 month. Our twins were still breastfeeding at this point. In addition, I bought a very inexpensive hand grain mill, and I learned to make homemade bread. Storing that food and learning the little I did brought incredible peace of mind. I loved knowing that we had something, anything stowed away. It would keep us alive if it needed to. But to tell you the truth, I am so glad I never had to use that food exclusively. It would have been so overwhelming. I have no idea what kinds of meals I would have made. Over time, I kind of switched to the Calorie Plus plan, and I didn't actually sit down and calculate out the calories, but I did slowly add more fruits, vegetables, and meats to our storage. I didn't have the space for a garden at the time, or the money to invest in canning equipment, or quite honestly, the energy to learn how to do those things. I had 3 children under age 2 at that time. So I bought grocery store cans. I didn't love the texture or how they worked in my recipes, but I just didn't realize there were other options, and having them brought increased peace of mind. It wasn't food that I didn't know how to use, and we could eat it if we needed to. So I convinced myself that I'd get around to eating it and we'd have it for dinner more often, but unfortunately, that never really happened, and I wasted a lot of food because we didn't rotate and use it. Eventually, I learned about and tasted freeze-dried foods, and I was amazed at how close to fresh they tasted in my family's recipes. We were doing better financially at this point, and I realized that with freeze-dried foods, I could base my food storage off recipes my family already knew and loved. My goal was to create a full plan based on recipes, but was a little overzealous, and I didn't realize how hard that would be. I didn't have the calculator that I'm going to give you today. So I kind of started by just adding food I knew I used in recipes. For a couple years, I just randomly added things like freeze-dried chicken, freeze-dried beans, corn, strawberries, potatoes, cheese, things like that. And as my food storage grew, I loved knowing that there were a lot of recipes I could make with my food storage. But I still wasn't sure how much of each ingredient I needed for a 3-month or a 6-month or a 12-month supply. It wasn't until 2014 that I actually sat down and calculated that out. I created the calculator that you'll get today. And I started by choosing recipes we loved. Then I tested each recipe by making it 2 to 3 times with shelf-stable ingredients, tweaking it each time to get it just right. And I know I recommended you do it once. I did it 2 to 3 because I published most of these recipes in a recipe book, and I wanted to make sure that they were just perfect and would work for other people as well. Now, once I had every recipe converted, I created that calculator and figured out how much of each ingredient I needed. As I've thought about the process that I went through, I want to offer some encouraging thoughts. First, some food is always better than no food. Don't let the fear of choosing the wrong method keep you from storing food for your family. Simply make the best decision you can with the information you have, but make a decision and then act. Store something. The peace of mind is priceless. Second, it's okay to start simple, even if that's not where you want to end up. It's okay to start with the basic calorie method. That's where I started. Or start with the recipe method if you prefer, but pick just a few recipes. Don't pick 14 dinner recipes like I have recently. I didn't do that initially. I do suggest that you keep your long-term food storage goals in mind so you don't buy things that won't fit into that plan at all. But starting simple allows for immediate peace of mind and a quick win. And that's going to motivate you to continue moving forward. Third, mistakes are okay. I wished I'd never stored so much canned grocery foods, but hey, I learned. Our family had food insurance during that time, and it ended up benefiting the local food bank. So it's okay that I made the quote unquote wrong choice for our family. It was better than not making any choice at all. Last, the method you choose will likely evolve and change over time. Maybe right now you don't have the time to learn to use those basic foods, but in 5 years, when all your kids are in school, you will. Or maybe right now you're living on student loans and don't have any extra income for freeze-dried foods. But in 10 years, when well into your career, you will be able to afford them. Your tastes will also likely change over time, which means you may change the recipes you store food for. So be open to that things are going to change, and keep it in mind as you choose which method you'll move forward with for now. So remember my story and remember those 4 encouraging tips. You can build a food storage for your family, and you can gain peace of mind and become more self-reliant. So as a review, just add water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options. The basic calorie method is a good option for those on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. The Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage but don't want to spend the time required for the recipe method. And last, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a customized, easy-to-use food storage and are willing to invest the time. Now, the second most popular question I got before the class was about inventory systems. Many people asked me, I have some food storage, but I can't really keep track of it. Or what do I do once I get it? How do I keep track of it? Now, there are 2 different systems that I will recommend. The first is called the Preparedness Planner, and this was written by a friend. Her name is Jennifer, and when I found out about her planner, she was not a friend. I didn't know her at all. But now she has become a friend over the last few years. And this planner is the most extensive paper planner I've ever seen. You can print out just what you need, but there are an enormous number of pages and ways to track and keep and know where your supplies are. Plus, Jennifer is very helpful if you do have questions as you work through her planner. The second is called Prep and Pantry, and it is a app that you can use on an Android or an iPhone. And it keeps track of the areas you have food stored in. So sometimes people will tell me, I don't have a storage room and I have to store some things under Jill's bed and other things in Jim's closet, and I can't ever remember where I put things, so I don't rotate through it. Well, this app will allow you to choose areas so you know where everything is. In addition, you scan things in when you put them into your storage area, and then you scan them out when you put them into your pantry where you're using stuff. That way, when you're at the grocery store and you see a sale on, say, rice or canned pineapple or something that you know you want, you can look up and see how many you need and not buy more than you need or not miss a good sale. So you will find links to both of these at the end of the class today. All right, there are 3 different calculators I've created to help you calculate your family's food storage needs once you've chosen a method. One is for the basic calories, second is Calorie Plus, and the third is for the recipe method. Each calculator can be adjusted in various ways to fit your family's current needs. So you might use one calculator now and a different one in a few years. Or you might start with a 1-month supply and then eventually work up to a 12-month supply. Again, I typically charge $10 for each calculator on my website, but as a thank you for attending the class today, I'd like to give them all to you for free. Below this video, you'll find a link, it's actually below the chat, that says Food Storage Class Free Resources. If you click on that now, it's not going to let you access the page. You'll need a password, and I'll give that password to you in just a few minutes. But once you do have access, that's where you're going to find the 3 calculators, along with the videos showing you how to use each one, a summary sheet of today's lesson, multiple conversion charts, and links to those 2 inventory systems, which I didn't add to the slide. I sincerely hope that these tools will help you build a food storage for your family. They have helped me and they have helped others. I believe them to be quite valuable and hope that they are helpful to you. If you appreciate the value of what I've taught you here today and are ready to get your family fully ready for emergencies, instead of just calculating the food storage, you actually want to build it and use it and look into things like water storage and evacuation and so on, then I have more for you today. I mentioned at the beginning of the class that I simply can't give you everything that I've learned in the last 10 years in 1 hour. So I want to give you an opportunity to get more support from me. I know that you took the time to show up today because you're smart and you care about your family. You want to be able to care for them even if things don't go as planned. And you don't want to rely on others who may or may not be reliable to do that for you. Maybe you have a New Year's resolution to get your family prepared. But the truth is, I admire you for that ambition, but you're here in this class because you haven't quite found a way to fully prepare your family yet. You're busy. You don't have time for never-ending Googling about emergency preparedness. You don't have the time to figure out what you need to do, much less go about doing it. And sometimes trying to fit emergency preparedness into your life might feel like pushing a round peg into a square hole. It just doesn't work. I've felt that way before. I know how impractical it feels to wade through all the staggering amounts of conflicting information that's available out there in Google land. But gratefully, 10 years later, I am no longer there. While there is always room for development and growth, I now feel confident that I can care for my family regardless of what life might throw at us. And so do those that I've coached over the last few years. Here's what one young mother, Stephanie, had to say after working with me. She says, like many people who are beginning to realize the necessity of being prepared, I was completely overwhelmed. So much so, I was practically paralyzed. Misty really helped me break down all the different components of emergency preparedness. And she made it extremely easy to be focused on and accomplish my goals. My family is now well on its way to being prepared for anything that may come our way. When I get notes like that, it makes me want to cheer. I am so, so happy for Stephanie and for the progress that her family has made and the confidence that she now has. Now, today I've given you enough information for you to calculate a solid food storage plan for your family. But I'd like to do more, and I want to give you a choice today. You can choose to take the info I've given you and run with it on your own. I've packed this class full of as much helpful info as I could and given you tools afterward that I sincerely believe will help you make progress with your food storage. But you can also choose to continue to work with me and have my full support as you progress in all areas of emergency preparedness, including water storage and purification, types of food storage, using your food storage, evacuation, first aid, power outages, and more. I'd like to invite you to enroll in my comprehensive emergency preparedness e-course, which I call Simply Prepared. And I am so proud and excited about this e-course. It's a 12-step online learning system which supports smart moms in preparing their busy families for emergencies without all that never-ending Googling that I keep mentioning. This is the system I wish I had 10 years ago when I started thinking about emergency preparedness. This is what I was looking for and found missing online. Those who enroll in the program will go through one pre-recorded module anytime that it is convenient. Each module is available in video, downloadable audio, or printable formats. So that means that you can go through them as they're released weekly, or you can work on just one a month or one every 3 months at your own pace. You can, because they're downloadable, you can also access them while the kids are at school or at midnight when all is quiet, in the bathtub when you're relaxing, when you're out running on the treadmill, or during your commute on your way to work. Each of these 12 modules includes simple, clear, and easy to implement lessons that walk you through the process of preparing your family for emergencies in a very logical and step-by-step manner. So there's 24 lessons total within these 12 modules. At the end of, I'm going to walk through these modules very quickly, just to give you a general idea of what's in each of them. In Module 0, I'll help you gain the perspective and momentum you need to be successful with emergency preparedness and the money and time to truly get prepared. The eye-opening worksheets in Module 1 are going to help you avoid the biggest mistake you can make when working to prepare your families for emergencies. I have had some students tell me that this module alone was worth enrolling in. It was worth enrolling in the entire class for. You'll know exactly what you need and don't need to prepare for. Module 2 will explore kind of maybe some new perspectives for making the most out of the storage space you have, as well as learn how and where to properly store and rotate your supplies so that they don't go to waste. In Module 3, you'll create a practical and surefire emergency plan for your family, and I'll show you methods for teaching that plan to your children without scaring or overwhelming them. In Module 4, I'm going to debunk some myths about how to calculate how much water your family needs. There's a lot of misinformation about water storage, and I want to get that cleared up for you. I'll also help you decide what containers to store it in. In Module 5, you'll learn proven ways to both find and then properly clean water sources that you find. You might find some surprising information in that module as well that you may not have heard online elsewhere. In Module 6, we'll take an in-depth look at and compare the 4 different calculation methods that we've talked about today. You've basically had one of the 24 lessons in this entire course. In this module, we'll also discuss 3 types of shelf-stable food and the pros and cons between them, so you can successfully choose quality food that will be useful to your family when you need it. In Module 7, we'll use those 3 calculators to plan your food storage. I'll walk you through exactly how to do that, as well as how to set short and long-term goals so you can start building your food storage one step at a time and gain those quick wins. But all the food storage in the world isn't going to do you any good if you don't know how to use it. So I will also help you save time, money, and avoid waste, plus decrease that daily mealtime stress by showing you how to regularly use the food you're storing. Now, in addition to food and water, there are many other supplies that are important in a well-rounded emergency preparedness plan. So in Module 9, you'll find out which first aid, communication, hygiene, sanitation supplies are useful, practical, reliable, and then which ones you really don't need so that you don't waste money. Power outages are a disaster that almost everyone will face at one time or another, and long-term outages can be dangerous. So in Module 10, I will give you the skills and help you learn about various tools that you can use to both cook and then stay warm if it's cold or cool if it's hot during a power outage. Finally, in Module 11, you will create an evacuation plan that guarantees you'll grab what is most important to your family first, even if you're fighting off panic. So in addition to the actual lessons within the modules, you're also going to find worksheets that will help you more fully understand what you're learning and then apply it to your family's situation. Like I told you, I don't believe anything about emergency preparedness is a, one-size-fits-all solution. I want to help you find the solution that works for your family. I don't want you to invest your time or your money in something that's not going to work for you. You'll also find challenges within each lesson that will help you apply what you've learned, since that's ultimately the goal. I'll give you printable summaries, comparisons, lists that will help you recall what you've learned so that you can continue to improve your preparation over time, without going back and having to wade through the entire lesson again. I'll also give you charts that summarize what you've learned and compare the pros and cons of various options, so once again, you can make informed decisions for your family. Okay, so all of that is available in a members-only online format. Outside of that, there are 3 additional bonuses that you will have access to. The first is an online community where you can collaborate and talk with people like you any day. This community is a great place to get support from other families who are also working to get prepared. Plus, I'll be in there and answer all the questions you post there. Most of them quite quickly, but none within less than 24 business hours. You'll be invited to 3 live question and answer sessions with me where you can get on the phone with me and discuss course content in more detail. And you'll have access to 5 expert extras. That's what I'm calling them. Again, I'm really fancy with the names here. But these are either videos or printables from various experts in the preparedness community that take certain topics like canning or dehydrating and go a little bit more in depth with them to help you really learn them if you're interested in those. There are also 2 bonuses you'll get once you've completed the course. Everyone who enrolls will receive their own preparedness priority roadmap at the end of the course, which will help you continue to invest your time and money wisely, even once the course modules have all been released to you. And then anyone who completes all the course worksheets by August 31st will also receive $50 in free food storage. All right, to enroll in Simply Prepared, you can choose to invest 3 payments of $97, or you can save $44 by paying $249 in full at the time of enrollment. Now, many students similar to you have completed the Simply Prepared e-course, and I want to tell you what just 2 of them had to say. Rob is a former U.S. Marine and a current firefighter and paramedic, and he said this: "Preparedness has been my thing for more than 20 years. Misty has by far the most complete and well thought out preparedness course of anything I've seen. It will be the best money you spend on preparedness." And Jerica said this: "Misty's course covers everything in one stop. It's easy, contagious, and addictive. Her course got us all the tools and resources we needed to be prepared, and it cut out that extensive info search. As I followed her program, it felt like a weight was lifted." Now, I get that it can be easy to procrastinate anything, and particularly easy to procrastinate emergency preparedness. So in order to encourage you to act quickly, I do have a fast action bonus available for you. Doesn't mean you have to act this second, but the first 40 people to enroll in Simply Prepared will receive $50 in free food storage. This is in addition to the food storage you will receive when you complete the class. Plus, because you have attended this free food storage class, you have access to 3 exclusive bonuses. If you enroll within the next 5 days, you will get a copy of my 72-hour kit ebook, which costs $17 on my site. This is the system that kind of put my website on the map. It went kind of crazy on Pinterest, and people really appreciated this step-by-step guide for building a really customized 72-hour kit. You also get a copy of my food storage recipe book. This is where all the recipes are that I mentioned earlier, all those that I tried 2 or 3 times and hired a photographer to help me take pictures of. We put it into this food storage book. And then last, you will also get a copy of my fillable grab and go binder pages. I offer a free version of these that you fill in by hand on my website. But for enrolling in this course, you'll get the electronically fillable pages for free. These are pages you can type in and then save on your computer. So if your information changes, it makes it a lot easier to edit. Now, I know you're busy, so you'll have lifetime access to the materials in the course and the Facebook community built for it. This means that while the modules are released one at a time weekly, they're never taken away from you once they've been released. So you can work through the course at your own place. Plus, with downloadable content, you can work on the material day or night in the car tub, in front of your computer, on your commute, on the treadmill. And then last, I want you to be confident and comfortable in your investment in this course. So I offer a 100% money back guarantee. If for any reason the course doesn't meet your needs, you have 3 weeks from the start date to request a full refund from me. If you'd like to read more about the Simply Prepared e-course, you can do that by clicking on the button that right now is down below the chat. It says learn more about the Simply Prepared e-course. Click on that and you can find more information or enroll if you choose to. Now, I know that not all of you are going to enroll, and that's okay. I hope that those of you who want to move forward with your plans for emergency preparedness do, and I will support you if you choose to do that. But regardless, I am grateful that you came today, and I want to give you these gifts for free. You can access the free resources below by clicking again on that button that says free food or food storage class free resources. The password you will need to enter is food storage. It is all one word and it is all caps. So don't put a space between food and storage, and make sure that it is all caps. If you enter that password, you will be able to download the calculators, watch tutorial videos to help you use them. You'll find a printable summary of today's lesson and food storage conversion charts, as well as links to those 2 inventory systems I mentioned. All right, let's move on to your questions. I am going to pull out of my screen share here for a minute so that I can read the chat and so you can see my face as I answered your questions. So give me just a second while I do that. All right, we're going to go down to the beginning here. And there we go. Pull out of my slides. Hi. Okay. Let me move into, I'm going to move the questions over to the screen. That's where the camera is, so I look like I'm looking at you. And how did I begin food storage with little or no money? Molly, honestly, at the very first, all the food that I bought from the LDS Cannery. They sell the food there at cost. So it is extremely inexpensive. They aren't making any profit on it. At the time, you could even go can your own food. They've phased that out. But I was able to start with just a few dollars a week that way. And I was also only really preparing for my husband and I only started with a 2-week supply. Eventually we moved up a little bit more. But I just started slowly, just really, really tiny little itty bits. One thing I did do was coupon, and I would use the money that I saved from those coupons, even if it was only $5 or $10 a week, to then turn around and invest that money in food storage. So I hope that gives you a little bit of encouragement and some ideas. All right. I bought a number 10 can of bacon and it went rancid within a month. That does not surprise me. Bacon shouldn't be canned, so I'm not sure where you found it. It may have been bacon TVP, and if that was true, then that's okay to can, but it's not real bacon. And a lot of foods that are really high in fat will have a very short shelf life once they've been opened. So that is true of freeze-dried ham, freeze-dried turkey. Those things will last for 25 years sealed in a shelf, but once you open it, and start using it, sometimes they'll need to be used within a week or 2. So that is something to consider. I choose to store those items in smaller cans so that if I open them, I can get through them faster. If you do have access to power and it's not an emergency, you can store them in your freezer, and that will extend the shelf life quite a bit. Does your calculator calculate how many number 10 cans you will need for the freeze-dried foods? Yes, it does, Meredith. Molly asks, how do you find storage space for the food storage in an already crowded house? I do go over this in a lot of detail in that full preparedness e-course, Molly, but there are a plethora of ideas. And a lot of it really is just getting creative and being willing to, what's the right word? Use things in unconventional ways. When we lived in a tiny little apartment in San Diego, we bought a $20 cabinet at Walmart, and we just stuck that in our living room and we filled that up, and that was the entirety of our food storage for a year or 2. Under beds, tops of closets, you can add an extra shelf. A lot of closets will have a lot of room on the top of them. The shelf is here so you can reach things, but there's often room for a second shelf up there, and you can put your food storage up there. It means that you may need a ladder or a step stool to get to it, but that's an option. Putting beds on risers and putting food storage under there. I would have boxes off both sides of the bed that kind of functioned as drawers, just old cardboard boxes, so that I could pull those out on either side of the bed, and I would keep food storage stored in there. So those are a few ideas. I would keep the top off those boxes so I could just pull it out and take things out. Yes, I've seen that on my slide that it says peach of mind, not peace of mind. I'm really, really glad that I only had one real typo. Yay for me. All this information is sometimes really hard to miss typos, but I do need to go back and fix that. All right, Richard asked, all my kids have moved away. How is the best way for them to start learning food storage from you? I appreciate your hard work to teach me and know they could benefit from your wisdom. Richard, a few different ideas. Honestly, the best way, if they really want to learn, is to take that e-course, that full e-course. But I know that may not be what you're asking. And I also have, they can sign up to receive the free preparedness grab and go binder printables. So they sign up for that on my website, and then they're on my email list. And the first thing they're going to get is a little mini evacuation e-course. And then after that, they will get weekly preparedness tips from me. So that's an idea, a good place that they can, they're going to get things regularly in their email that will hopefully help motivate them to start working on things. All right. Nanette says, excited to get started. You make it seem really doable. Thank you. What is your favorite brand of freeze-dried foods? That is kind of a tough question. I don't believe that there is any brand out there that is just terrible. However, I do have a favorite, and my favorite brand is Thrive Life. I have done a lot of blind taste tests, and Thrive always wins. They're very, very careful about their quality, and they have been for years. But one thing that makes them different now, in the last year, they've started freeze-drying their own food. So what that means is that most companies who sell freeze-dried food, they can pick from 2 or 3 or 4 suppliers who freeze-dry, say, ground beef. So they have very few choices. Many of them will have the same supplier, and so their quality is going to be the same. But with Thrive, they can get their ground beef from anywhere and then freeze-dry it themselves, or their bell peppers, or their strawberries, and they're extremely, extremely picky about their quality. You'll open a can, and sometimes it's extreme. Sometimes it's really not that extreme, but sometimes there's a big difference. And even like the green beans look green versus the green beans look gray, or the strawberries smell like strawberries versus the strawberries smell like nothing. They are very, very high quality. And if quality is important to you, then I suggest that's where you buy your food, your freeze-dried food at least. Don't buy wheat and stuff there. Buy that at the LDS cannery. It's a much better investment. All right. Can I use the calculators later, and how do I access them after we finish the video? Yes. Simply go back to that page. Just save the URL. So let me see if I can show you here. I'll start screen sharing again, and I'll show you how to save that URL just in case. I'm going to go here. Okay, so you'll click on this button right here, and it will open up this for you, right? It's going to ask you for that password. Didn't ask me because I'm already logged in. So you're going to come up here to the top, and you're going to highlight this URL, right click, and choose copy. You can just send yourself an email with that, or you can just add this URL to your favorites. And then every time you come back to that, you will be able to just re-enter the password and go ahead and access those resources again. All right, I think those were all the questions on there, but I'm getting back to that page again really quick. We'll check. It's taking a minute to load. Okay, there are some more questions. Does temperature play a major role in keeping your food storage lasting longer? Yes, it does. Most of the time when you see a shelf life on food, so say 25 years for freeze-dried food, that is going to assume that you're storing it around a consistent 70 degrees-ish. People have said, and I've never tested this myself, but this is a common factor known out there in the preparedness world. If for every 10 degrees that you increase that, you're cutting your shelf life in half. So if you're storing it at 80 degrees, you're going to have a 12 to 13-year shelf life. If you're storing it at 90 degrees, you're going to have a 6-year shelf life. So people will ask me, can I store my food storage in the garage? It's the only space I have. My answer is yeah, sure, go ahead. Just make sure you rotate through it more often. All right. Do you have a preference of Thrive versus Emergency Essentials? Emergency Essentials. Emergency Essentials is my go-to budget brand. If somebody just really cannot afford Thrive Life, they do tend to be a little bit more expensive, then I will suggest Emergency Essentials second. However, I have gotten cans from Emergency Essentials that I have been extremely disappointed in. And I've never had that with Thrive. I do have some products at Thrive that I don't like, just because I don't like them in general. I don't eat ground beef very often, so I wouldn't buy that anywhere. But I have opened cans from Emergency Essentials, and the food just looks kind of gray, or it doesn't smell like anything. So that's something to note. But if I need to recommend a budget brand, that's who I recommend. If you really do want to stick with the top quality, then buy Thrive on Black Friday or in March. They have a March Madness sale, and that is when you can get their food for the least expensive. They also have a monthly coupon that will bring those prices a little bit closer down to where Emergency Essentials is. So hopefully that answers that. Any other questions? Gonna refresh this one more time. sure I haven't missed anything. It's supposed to update automatically, but we'll just make sure. If you do have any additional questions that I haven't had a chance to answer here, feel free to email those to me directly and I would be happy to answer them. I did get 2 more after I refreshed that. I'm a bit hard of hearing and never got the password. Could you please repeat it? Yes, the password is food storage, FOOD STORAG, food storage, but it is all one word. So there's no space between food and storage, and it is all capital letters. Food storage, one word, capital letters. All right, can you use dried eggs like regular eggs? Yes, I love dried eggs. They're probably one of my very favorite food storage items. There is a difference between various eggs that you're going to find out there. And I would highly advise you to choose eggs that are 100% eggs, that don't have anything else in them. Now, if you're going to use them in baking, I personally think they work better than fresh eggs in baking. But most of the cans, when they tell you how many eggs are on there, they're going to tell you there's 267 eggs in here. Well, those are medium eggs. And most recipes call for large eggs. So it'll tell you 1 teaspoon is 1 egg. Well, if you're going to use it in baking, add a heaping tablespoon. Sorry, tablespoon, not teaspoon, because that's going to give you your large egg instead of your medium egg. So that's one tip for cooking with powdered eggs. There's also going to be a difference between the way that they're made. They can be spin dried or drum dried, and they will taste, and they won't always list that on there, but if they're crystals instead of powder, then they're going to taste a lot more like fresh eggs when you're making scrambled eggs. If they're powder, they're going to be a lot cheaper, but they won't taste like eggs when you're making scrambled eggs, but they will work well in baking. So I store both types, one for when I want to make an omelet or scrambled eggs, and the other to bake with. Okay, let's refresh this one more time because it seems like new questions pop up as I'm done, and I'm willing to stay here as long as I need to get them all answered. Let me just see if any more have come up, and we'll either get them answered or sign off. Takes a minute for it to reload. Okay. Okay, thank you. I enrolled and can't wait to get into the weeks. I'm glad to have you, Jeremy. Food storage is the password. Thank you, Jean. Do I buy Thrive Foods from their website or from Costco? Is quality the same? Yes, quality is the same. No, I don't buy them from Costco. I am not on here to sell Thrive Foods, but I do sell them. But if you buy them from anybody who is a consultant for Thrive, they sell their foods through Costco and they sell them through consultants. They're always cheaper to buy through consultants. If you would like more information about that, you can email me directly, or you can contact Thrive and find a consultant who is local to you. Both I or a local consultant to you would be able to offer you the same price. Just as an FYI, I also sell Emergency Essentials and Augustin Farms and all of the brands. You can find links to them all over my website. So I'm not promoting Thrive just because they're the only one I sell. I recommend them because they're the only one I buy for my own family. All right, have I ever tried powdered whole milk? No, Molly, I haven't. It's extremely, extremely rare because there's so much fat in it that when you freeze dry it, it can go rancid quite quickly. If you were to open a can of powdered whole milk, you'd have to use it really fast or it's going to go rancid very fast. Almost all the powdered milks that you'll find out there are non-fat or skim milk. But one cool trick with powdered milk is if you want it to taste more like whole milk, or maybe you like 2%, just add more powder than what the recommendation is, what the instructions say, and it will taste thicker or more like 2% or whole milk without the fat. Anything else? We'll refresh again. The chat's supposed to update automatically, but I think it's behind a few seconds. So when I refresh, I'm seeing some of your questions faster. I'm so glad that you have questions and that you're staying on here and that you want to learn. Okay, well, I'd be able to see this video again if I wanted to, because in your email, you said if someone couldn't make it, you'd forward them the video. Yes, everyone who's registered, including all of you who attended live, will get a link to the replay within the hour. So once we hang up here, I will get that replay all ready and send an email to everybody who is registered for this time so that you can access this. Now, the replay is only going to be available till the end of January, January 27th. So just note that if you want to access it, you will need to do it before then. I do think that I may turn this class into a paid product in the future. So you guys are all lucky you got it for free. But for that reason, it's only going to be available for free for a few weeks. Is it less to purchase from a consultant than directly from the company's website? Gina, I assume you're asking about Thrive, and yes, it is. Although there is one little caveat there. Sometimes when you search Thrive Life, if you put it in Google and you search that, some consultants are paying for advertisements that will come up at the top, and you'll click on them and you're going directly to the Thrive Life website, but it's linked to that consultant. So that consultant's going to get credit if you purchase, and you're going to get the lower price. So you might think that you're on the main Thrive Life website, and you are, but because you're linked to that consultant, you're going to see the lower price. So sometimes people will come back to me and say, that's not true. Well, if you clear your cookies and then refresh it, so you're no longer linked to that consultant, you'll see the higher price. So yes, it is cheaper to purchase from a consultant, but if you've ever been linked to a consultant in the past, that's the price you're going to see when you look at the main website, even if you were to go thrivelife.com and type that in. All right. Any other questions? Waiting for it to refresh again. Awkward silence. I've seen some people suggest storing buttermilk powder. Does that have the same problem with going rancid as whole milk powder does? I would assume so, Molly. I've never actually stored it, but buttermilk is really easy to make with powdered milk. You just add a little bit of vinegar, which stores really, really well, just plain old white vinegar, or lemon juice, which is typically kept in the fridge, but the vinegar's not. So one of the conversions on the conversion chart that you'll get, or that you now have access to, will show you how to make buttermilk from just regular old powdered milk. So I just don't think there's any real reason to store buttermilk separately. All right, we'll refresh again. I really am glad you guys have questions. You've been the most interactive group so far. I've done this class. This is the third time now, so. Okay, I didn't get any more questions when I refreshed. So if you do have an additional question and I hang up before I get to it, please just email me and I will respond to you. It might take me till Monday. I have a date with my husband tonight, and I don't work on Sundays. So I will probably get back to it on Monday, but I promise you that I will get back to you and answer you. So thank you so much for attending today. I really am thrilled that you came and hope that you find all the information here helpful. Once again, if you would like to continue to work with me and continue to have that support, you can enroll in that preparedness e-course that I call Simply Prepared. I would love to have you there. Have a, sorry, another question as I'm about to sign off. Can you tell us more about your cookbook? Sure. If you go to the home page, just yourownhomestore.com of my website, or you can scroll up to the top and you can click on the home button. Down near the bottom of that page, you'll find a link to my recipe book. And there's a lot of information in there, you know, all the recipes that you'll get and why I made it and all that sort of things, pictures and things like that. But those are just the recipes that I have chosen to store ingredients for my family. And like I said, I tested each one of them multiple times, and you can purchase it in either an ebook format or an actual hard copy book format. The one that you will get for free if you decide to enroll in the full e-course is the ebook copy. So, all right, I think we're good. Again, if you have more questions, email me, and thanks again for coming. Have a fantastic weekend.